Welcome to Seriously Sus, a podcast exposing shadiness with a side eye, hosted by Nanette and Miranda. And we're here to uncover the true crime stories and internet chaos that make you question everything. So get your side eye ready, because things are about to get seriously sus. Algorithm versus reality, how YouTube broke the dictionary. Welcome back to Seriously Sus, the show where internet's drama meets our collective disbelief. I'm Miranda.
And I'm Nanette. Get your side eye ready. Forget the Urban Dictionary. Today we're taking a deep dive into that word that doesn't mean what you think it does, fight between creators and YouTube.
Okay, Nanette, I want to make a point. I'm going to read a sentence. Totally normal, totally adult, something you might hear in a news report or a documentary. Hell, even something you might have written in your past life as a journalist.
All right, I'm ready.
The victim was murdered after reporting ongoing abuse. The case raised serious concerns about mental health support and systematic failures.
Yeah, that's grim but normal. Accurate, clear. Nothing that would cause me to raise an eyebrow as a news editor.
Right. Now, let me read to you the YouTube safe version.
Oh no.
All right, here we go. An individual was unalived following previously discussed unsafe situations. The incident sparked conversations around emotional wellness and institutional gaps.
That sounds like a press release written by a haunted HR department who was trying to get their money's worth from the source.
Exactly. Same event, same facts, completely different language, and somehow way less serious.
It's like we took something real and ran it through a corporate blender.
And that's the point. Nothing about the story changed, only the words did. Because on certain platforms, like the first version risks getting demonetized, buried, and quietly strangled by the algorithm. So creators learn to translate, not because they want to, but because they have to.
And once you start noticing it, you hear it everywhere. Videos about crime, mental health, addiction, abuse, all spoken in this weird half language where nothing can be named directly.
Ugh, I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is wild because, adults, they know what these words means. Kids already know what these words mean. The only thing that pretending otherwise does is make serious conversations sound absolutely ridiculous.
And the craziest part? None of this is about morals, or safety, or even content quality. It's about money, and lawsuits, and advertisers who don't want their logo next to reality.
Isn't everything?
Mm-hmm.
So today we're talking about how we got here. How YouTube's policies, legal pressure, and algorithmic monitoration didn't just change what creators say. They changed how the internet talks. Period.
Welcome to the Algorithm's Thesaurus. Today we're going to dive into the bizarre linguistic gymnastics happening on YouTube. Thanks to sponsorship policies that have creators now saying things like grape instead of rape, unalived instead of murder, and my personal favorite, PDF file instead of, well, you know.
PDF file. Wow. Yeah, because apparently advertisers and algorithms have decided that certain words that describe real issues, are too spicy for monetization. Suicide? Nope. Eating disorders? Forget it. Even when the content is educational or aimed at adults, creators are forced to play word twister just to keep their channels alive.
And this isn't just a quirky trend. It's tied to a massive lawsuit against YouTube that could reshape how the platform moderates speech. We're talking millions of dollars, political pressure, and a First Amendment debate that makes legal scholars sweat. And circling back to last week, what did we learn about the First Amendment?
It protects against the government. If you haven't watched or listened to that one yet, go do it. Okay, so today we're going to break it down. What this lawsuit is about and why YouTube paid $24.5 million to settle. How advertiser-friendly guidelines have creators censoring themselves into oblivion. And we're going to be talking about the cultural fallout, because when serious conversations turn into code-worded bingo, the internet gets really weird.
Plus, we'll ask the big question. Is this protecting kids or infantizing adults? And what happens when the platform becomes the language police?
Stick around. We've got memes, chaos, and maybe a little existential dread about algorithmic censorship. Welcome to Seriously Sus.
All right, Let's start with the big headline. YouTube is in the middle of a legal storm. In September 2025, they agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit brought by Donald Trump over his account suspension after January 6th. This wasn't just about one account. It's about the broader question of how much power platforms have to moderate speech. Spoiler, YouTube didn't admit wrongdoing, but the settlement sent a clear message. Moderation policies are under the microscope.
Exactly. The lawsuit argued that YouTube's suspension violated free speech rights. But here's the kicker. YouTube is a private company, as we said before, so the First Amendment doesn't apply in the same way it does to government censorship. Still, the case sparked debates on whether platforms should act like neutral carriers or educational publishers.
And while the settlement didn't force YouTube to admit wrongdoing, it sent shockwaves through the industry. Combine that with advertiser pressure and child safety concerns, and suddenly, moderation policies got way stricter.
And then came Eugenia Cooney case. This is a whole different beast. My daughter actually showed me about Eugenia Cooney. I hadn't seen it before.
Oh.
So Eugenia is a controversial influencer, and she became the face of a massive multi-district lawsuit targeting TikTok, YouTube, Meta, Snapchat, all of them. The claim: these platforms allegedly design addictive features that harm minors, fueling eating disorders and anxiety. So a federal judge even ordered TikTok to hand over all the internal documents about Eugenia's May 2025 live stream, where she literally collapsed live on camera.
This case isn't just about one creator. It's part of a broader legal reckoning. Plaintiffs argue these platforms knew their algorithms were addictive and harmful, but prioritized engagement over safety. If they win, it could redefine liability for social media companies.
Which brings us to the next part: advertiser-friendly guidelines. These rules are designed to keep brands happy by avoiding controversial topics. But what counts as controversial anyway? Violence, adult themes, shocking content, or even discussions of mental health issues like suicide or eating disorders. A lot of this makes sense once you stop thinking about YouTube as a cultural platform and start thinking about it as a legal entity. These policies aren't driven primarily by ethics, they're driven by liability. Advertisers don't want risk, and insurance companies, they don't want risk. Legal teams, they definitely don't want risk. So the platforms, they tend to overcorrect. They'd rather silence 10 responsible conversations than risk a lawsuit. And that's why modernization feels so blunt. Nuance is expensive. Context is risky. Over-censorship is safe.
This is where brand safety becomes the real governing principle. It's not about truth or harm reduction. It's about plausible deniability. If everything controversial is filtered out, the platforms can say, "We tried," even if what they actually did was erase meaningful conversation. And that's why creators feel like they're being managed by lawyers instead of humans, because functionally, they are. Now let's talk YouTube TOS, the fine print that's ruining everybody's day. Let's review what changed, because this didn't happen overnight. YouTube just didn't wake up one day and decide everyone needed to start talking like they're in a spy movie. A bunch of quiet terms of service changes stacked on top of each other, and together they created this mess. One of the biggest challenges sound good on paper. YouTube raised the threshold for when a video can be removed outright. It used to be if about 25% of your video violated policy, it could be taken down. Now it's closer to 50% if the video is considered in public interest. And that phrase, public interest, is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because no one really knows who decides that or how consistent that decision is.
Right? Who's making this choice? I mean, public interest sounds like protection for journalists and educators until you realize it's completely subjective. One reviewer might see a video about violence as newsworthy, and another might see the same video as, advertiser unfriendly. And that inconsistency is what's making creators so nervous. At the same time, YouTube loosened removal standards, it tightened monetization rules. And this is where it really starts to break. Advertiser-friendly guidelines still treat certain words as radioactive: suicide, rape, eating disorders, regardless of context. You could be talking about prevention, recovery, and education. The system still reacts as if you're promoting harm.
And that's where creators feel gaslit. Because the platform says, we support educational content, but then quietly punishes you for using the actual language required to educate. I mean, we all, thank God we're not even monetized to start with, because
We would be losing it.
this episode would just flat out be done with us. It'll be interesting to see if they take it down, because we refuse to speak in code. We're adults trying to have adult conversations.
So I guess this is a fun test, isn't it?
It is.
Let's see.
So people adapt. They start using swapped words, censoring themselves, and avoid topics altogether. Not because they want to, but because they can't afford to. Another change that flew under the radar was age restrictions on live streaming. As of 2025, you have to be at least 16 to live stream or be visibly supervised, which sounds like a safety move, and in some cases it is, but it also shifts liability onto creators. Suddenly you're not just responsible for your content, you're responsible for providing who's allowed to be on camera.
Right, you gotta prove that, yeah. And this is the one that really scared people. Retroactive enforcement. So this is where creators logged in one morning and found videos from years ago suddenly flagged, demonetized, or deleted. So content that was fully compliant at the time it was uploaded no longer meets all the new updated standards. From YouTube's perspective, they're enforcing current rules. But from a creator's perspective, it feels like the floor is constantly moving. You could follow the rules perfectly today and still be punished tomorrow for something you did in 2018.
All right. I want to zoom in on one specific rule that explains why creators don't trust YouTube anymore. Just to really keep everyone on edge, YouTube also updated its profanity policy, which I'm surprised we haven't gotten flagged for yet.
Whoopsie daisies.
Yeah. Technically, you can now swear in the first 7 seconds of a video without automatically losing monetization. But,
well, shit, that's good news.
Right, but there's always a but.
Always a but.
If profanity shows up in your title or thumbnail, or if it's excessive, you're penalized. And that's what's going to get us.
See, I was just watching this Mark Mason thing the other day, though, and I swear to God, he said fuck 187 times in that video. I love him for that.
So creators are sitting there counting seconds, editing captions, rethinking thumbnails, and trying to remember which words are allowed this month.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And on paper, the rules sound simple, reasonable even. But in reality, it's just a masterclass on how policy whiplash trains creators to self-censor forever. So let's rewind. In 2022, YouTube rolled out stricter advertiser-friendly guidelines. One of the big ones, if you use strong profanity early in the video, especially in the opening moments, you are basically guaranteed limited or no monetization. Doesn't matter if it has one word, doesn't matter if it was accidental, doesn't matter if the rest of the video was educational, newsworthy, or responsible. Creators adapted fast. People started counting seconds, editing intros, bleeping themselves mid-sentence. In 2023, YouTube partially walked that thing back. So early profanity might not fully kill monetization, but it'll still get you limited ads, which is like saying, you're allowed to talk, just don't expect to pay rent.
And then mid-2025, YouTube announced another update. Strong profanity in the first 7 seconds would now be eligible for full monetization. Creators rejoice about that for about 5 minutes. Because here's the fine print. You still can't put profanity in titles or thumbnails. Okay, well, that's reasonable.
All right. Yeah, okay.
You know, kids are on YouTube. All right, that's fine. You still can't use it frequently throughout the video.
What's frequently?
Exactly. And advertisers can still opt out anyway. Okay, again, private businesses.
Yeah, that's their right to do so.
That's their right. But it's also creators' right
to
say
do whatever they say
right?
it. This is how I talk.
Right?
So, technically, yes, you can swear early, but practically, you probably shouldn't. And that's the problem. The rule changed, the fear didn't. Because creators, they don't experience policy updates as freedom. They experience them as risk calculations. No one wants to upload a video, wait 2 hours to see that yellow dollar sign pop up, or worse, have their reach quietly throttled with no explanation.
This is why euphemisms don't go away even when rules loosen. Once creators learn that saying the wrong thing can cost them money retroactively, they don't want to unlearn that. Even if YouTube says, "You're now allowed," creators hear, "But you might be punished later." And when that income depends on the opaque system with retroactive enforcement, the safest move is always silence or code.
You can't build a career on guidelines that change quietly, enforce inconsistently, and punish retroactively. Which is why creators don't speak like normal humans anymore. They speak like people who have been burned before. And that's how you end up with an internet where everyone sounds like they're negotiating with a lawyer mid-sentence. When you put all of that together, the looser removal rules, stricter monetization rules, the retroactive enforcement, age restrictions, and hyper-specific profanity policies, you get a system that technically allows speech, but financially punishes it. And that's the key thing to really understand here. YouTube doesn't have to ban you to silence you. It just has to make talking about certain things economically impossible.
Which is why the language changed. Not because creators are immature, not because they're trying to be cute, but because they're trying to survive inside a system where the rules keep changing. And enforcement is opaque, and the penalties hit your livelihood. Demonetization, the silent killer. Even if your video stays up, one wrong word can tank your ad revenue.
Erman Ahmad, CEO of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, he summed it up really perfectly. We're seeing a race to the bottom now. Platforms are loosening some rules while tightening others, and creators are caught in the crossfire. That's his direct quote.
I think it's important to pause here and actually talk about how YouTube decides what's, quote, allowed, because a lot of people picture this as a human process, like someone sitting there watching your video and deciding whether you crossed a line. But that's not what's happening. What's really driving all of this is automation, speech-to-text software, keyword detection, metadata scanning. Titles, descriptions, tags, even auto-generated captions will get fed into the systems designed to assess risk, not intent. What that means is the algorithm isn't asking, is this educational? Is this helping people? It's asking, does this contain language that advertisers might not like? And that's a very different question. That's why euphemisms work at all. When creators switch from rape to grape, or from murder to unalived, they're exploiting a delay. The system hasn't learned that code yet.
But the key word here is delay, because it always catches up. Every euphemism that becomes common eventually becomes legible to the algorithm. And once that happens, it's treated exactly the same as the original word. That's why it feels like an endless treadmill. Creators aren't being clever for fun. They're just constantly reacting to a moving target that updates quietly and retroactively. And that retroactive part is where it really messes with people. Like I said, you can upload something that's perfectly fine today, and 6 months from now, it suddenly violates the updated guidelines. See, that's when people wake up to entire back catalogs that were demonetized and removed with literally no warning and very little explanation. This is not about people being dramatic. It's about instability. Could you imagine that's your financial stability and it could just disappear for nothing? It's crazy. You can't plan, you can't build, and you can't rely on precedent because precedent doesn't exist in an algorithmic system. All right, Nanette, it's time again.
Oh no.
Welcome to the Algorithmic Thesaurus, the unofficial dictionary of words we're apparently not allowed to say like adults anymore.
This is the section where language goes to die, and then comes back wearing a fake mustache.
Here's how it works. These are real substitutions creators use, not because they're trying to be cute, but because they're trying to keep the lights on. We're going to read a few examples and judge them on 3 things. 1, clarity. Do we still know what they're talking about? 2, absurdity. Does it sound like a children's show accidentally wandered in a true crime documentary? And 3, shelf life. How long before the algorithm figures it out and ruins it? Okay, first entry.
Hit me.
Replacing a direct term for violent crime with, they were unalived during an unfortunate situation.
Clarity, low. Absurdity, extremely high. Shelf life, already expired. Unalived is
Right.
now, I think, common enough that it's going to start getting flagged if it hasn't already.
Right. I mean, this one's really on life support. Everyone knows what it means now, including the algorithm.
And the problem is, it doesn't just soften the word, it softens the accountability. Something happened, but who did it? How? Why? Who knows? Vibes were off.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, the next category, food metaphors.
I hate that this is a category. When discussions of adult content, exploitation, and serious harm turn into groceries, nothing makes trauma feel more unserious than accidentally sounding like a cooking channel.
For real, creators will say things like, we can't talk directly about the situation, but it involves some very serious issues that platforms consider spicy. Clarity?
Medium, but you're already fluent in internet nonsense.
Absurdity?
Off the charts. Trauma should not sound like a menu item.
And shelf life?
Short. Once brands figure out their ads are next to produce aisle trauma, it's over.
Right? Like they can't possibly be thinking that, so many people are looking for grape recipes.
Mm-hmm. Or corn.
Right? Up next, the acronym era.
Ah, yes. When language turns into alphabet soup.
You hear creators say things like, I can't say the full word, but S-A?
Which is wild because context matters. SA could mean 5 different things depending on what you're talking about.
Clarity?
Low for new audiences. High for people already deep in internet culture. Confusing even for adults.
Absurdity?
Moderate but exhausting.
And shelf life.
Longer than euphemisms because acronyms are harder for automated systems to interpret. For now.
All right, next category. Turning everything into vague wellness talk.
Therapy speak for doing crimes it never consented to do.
Example sentence. The situation raised important conversations around emotional wellness and unsafe dynamics.
Clarity? Technically, yes. Practically, no.
Absurdity?
Hi. That sentence could describe a bad date or a felony.
Shelf life.
Long, because it's corporate-approved mush.
It sounds like something that gets sent in your office email.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what all of these have in common. They only work if you already understand what's being hidden, which means new viewers, especially people who are actually looking for help or information, are locked out. So the internet becomes this weird insider-only space where everyone is speaking in code and no one can just say what they actually mean. That's not safety, it's obstruction.
And the worst part? None of these are permanent. Every euphemism eventually gets caught. The algorithm learns it, advertisers flag it, and the creators have to invent a new word that sounds even dumber than the last one. It's an endless treadmill, and no one ever reaches the finish line.
So when people laugh at how ridiculous internet language sounds right now, just remember, this isn't slang, it's a workaround. It's not creativity, it's compliance.
And the fact that we all understand the code, that's just how you know the system has already failed.
And that's also why we are never going to be rich. And we're going to keep saying it.
One of the weirdest ones I've been hearing lately is people can't talk about eating disorder because that word gets flagged. So they started calling it Ed Sheeran or friend of Anna, friend of Bingo for binge eating. And there was another one that I can't remember. But this is just absolutely absurd. If you're trying to have an honest conversation and you have to say, well, she's a friend of Bingo and has an Ed Sheeran, like, it's
That's
ridiculous.
so crazy. Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
And poor Ed Sheeran, he did not agree to be part of
Right?
this.
Oh, goodness. As absurd as all of those examples sound, it's actually very old human behavior. Whenever speech is restricted, whether by governments, institutions, or platforms, people don't stop talking. They start translating. And we've seen this over and over again. Think about the Hollywood production code. When entire topics like sex, queerness, and violence were banned outright, and filmmakers had to imply everything through shadows and metaphors.
Or radio edits in the early 2000s, where songs technically played, but they made absolutely no sense.
Uh-huh.
Or Cold War language, where entire geopolitical realities were buried under euphemisms. What's happening on YouTube and TikTok fits perfectly into that pattern. The difference now is like scale and speed. Instead of a small group of censors and editors, you have global automated systems enforcing these rules instantly across millions of videos without any explanation.
And that's why the internet ends up having a shared dialect. Creators started playing this weird game of linguistic hopscotch. You can't say rape, so you say great. You can't say murdered, so you say unalived. And again, my personal favorite ridiculousness, saying PDF file instead of pedophile. Internet ends up inventing a shared dialect. It's like a secret code, but behind the humor is frustration. Creators feel infantized. To outsiders, it sounds ridiculous. To listeners, it frustrates me that as an adult, we can't speak adult language. But if your income depends on it, you learn the language fast.
It's absurd. It's not creativity, it's survival. And once you see it that way, the whole thing becomes a lot less funny and a whole lot more bleak. If you use the wrong word, your video gets demonetized and buried in the algorithm. And this isn't just about swear words. YouTube updated that policy, right? So you could swear for the first 7 seconds if you want to. But if you go overboard or you put it in the title, you are toast. And again, who decides what's overboard?
Right? Imagine trying to cover true crime or mental health responsibly, and you have to talk about it like you're in a spy movie. The suspect, unalived, the victim. It's not just awkward, it changes how we communicate serious issues.
Yeah, honestly, and I feel like what's the word I'm looking for? It is a very serious issue, and like if someone was, let's say, murdered and you call it unalived, it feels like it's not not as serious.
Right, it feels
like you're downplaying what happened.
Exactly.
Like it's not cute. It was a murder, not unalive.
Yeah, it went from like murder to, oh, he looked at him wrong. Is kind of the vibe that it gives you.
Right. Like unalive seems like it could have been an accident even.
Right. Yeah, it does. It takes this serious and the weight of it away.
That's it. It takes the weight off of it when it really needs to be there. That's what I'm looking for. And creators are frustrated. They feel like they're being punished just for discussing reality. Academic research backs this up too. Algorithmic censorship doesn't just remove harmful content, it reshapes language and discourse. Jennifer Kobe, a Cambridge researcher, put it bluntly: algorithmic censorship allows platforms to exercise unprecedented control over public and private communications.
Creators are furious. Some lost entire archives overnight. YouTube says it's enforcing community guidelines, but the creators argue the rules are vague and retroactive.
And appeals? Good luck. Automated systems flag content, and human review is very minimal.
When we talk about creators getting demonetized, I think some people sometimes imagine influencers with millions of followers who will be fine no matter what. But that's not who gets hit the hardest. It's the small and mid-sized creators. The ones whose channels are paying rent, covering medical bills, or funding childcare. For those creators, demonetization isn't a slap on the wrist. It's the difference between stability and scrambling. And the scariest part is how unpredictable it is. One flagged word, one automated decision, and suddenly your video is buried. Not removed, just made invisible, which is almost worse because you don't even know what went wrong. Mental health educators feel this especially hard. Imagine trying to talk about suicide prevention, eating disorder recovery, or trauma healing, and being punished for using the actual words people need to hear. Or true crime creators being penalized for the accuracy, because you're not glorifying violence, you're describing it responsibly.
Right, you're just saying what happened.
Right, facts. Facts are facts.
Yeah, they're just facts. They're not opinions.
Right. The algorithm doesn't care about responsibility. It cares about advertiser comfort. And that creates this warped incentive structure where creators feel punished for honesty and rewarded for vagueness. Over time, that changes what people are willing to talk about at all. Some topics quietly disappear, not because they're unimportant, but because they're financially unsafe.
And honestly, it's totally given some Orwell 1984 newspeak to me.
Absolutely.
All right, at this point, I can hear some people yelling at their phone. But this is censorship. YouTube is silencing people. It violates free speech.
All right, well, what do we know about that?
Government. I mean, and that reaction makes sense. It does feel like censorship, but legally, it's much more complicated and very annoying.
Here's the foundational thing that everyone needs to understand. As we covered last week, the First Amendment protects you from the government, not from YouTube, not from advertisers, not from a tech company deciding it doesn't like what you said. YouTube is a private company, which means legally it gets to decide what it hosts, what it promotes, and what it demonetizes, even if those decisions are bad, even if they're inconsistent, even if they completely warp how people talk.
And this is where people usually jump in and say, okay, but YouTube is basically the public square, and culturally, sure. Practically, also yes. Legally, nope. Courts have been very clear about this. Platforms aren't treated like governments just because a lot of people use them. They're treated more like editors, which means they have what's called editorial discretion. The right to decide what appears and what doesn't. That's just how things are prioritized.
Mm-hmm. And now this is where things get messy. Because states have tried to step in and say, hey, platforms shouldn't be allowed to moderate content this way, especially when moderation looks political, inconsistent, or economically coercive. Those guys have gone all the way to the Supreme Court. And what the court has said basically is, this is not simple. You can't just force platforms to carry speech they don't want to carry. Again, they're a private business. The First Amendment doesn't apply.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds completely silly and ridiculous to us, but it is absolutely their right to have these absurd rules.
Yep.
And here's the part creators actually feel. Platforms don't have to ban you to silence you. They just have to make speaking unprofitable, really.
Mm-hmm.
Your video stays up, your channel still exists, but it's buried or demonetized or quietly deprioritized, which means legally your speech still exists, but functionally just no one sees it.
Yep. And this is why people feel gaslit when they're told no one is censoring you, because technically that is true. But economically and algorithmically, your ability to speak plainly has consequences. So creators adapt. They soften language. They swap words. They avoid topics. Not because they're confused about the law, but because they don't understand the system.
This is the core tension that no one's really solved yet. Platforms want maximum legal protection and minimum liability. Advertisers want zero risk and maximum control. Creators want to talk about real things without losing their income. And audiences want honesty. These goals are not compatible with each other.
Not at all. But is it censorship? Legally, no. Practically, it sure acts like it. But when speech isn't banned, just quietly punished, people don't stop talking, they start coding, which brings us right back to the internet speaking in riddles. And so, of course, the internet does what it does best. It turned this into a meme factory.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, Twitch, even Twitter, X, are full of jokes about grape and PDF files.
But here's the serious question. Is it protecting kids or infantizing adults? Platforms argue that they're shielding minors from harmful content, but when creators can't even say suicide in a mental health awareness video, that's not protection, that's erasure.
And it's not just YouTube. These moderation trends spill over into other platforms. The fear of demonetization is so strong that creators self-censor everywhere. And there's a psychological cost to all of this that doesn't get talked about enough. Language isn't just a tool. It's how we process reality. When we swap out precise words for euphemisms, it changes how harm is understood. When you say unalived instead of killed or murdered, it creates distance. It softens the violence. And while it still might feel safer on the surface, it also makes accountability blurrier. Trauma researchers actually emphasize the importance of accurate language, especially for survivors. Naming what happens matters.
I was literally thinking that, like, you guys are trying to say that kids don't get sexually abused, that kids don't have to deal with suicide and things like that.
Right.
They do. You're not protecting anyone. They have to deal with it just as much as everyone else, sometimes more.
Right.
So when platforms force people to sanitize the language, They're not just moderating content, they're reshaping how we collectively understand violence, abuse, and death. Serious topics start to feel abstract, almost fictional. And that's dangerous because it disconnects people from real world consequences behind those words. This is where the protecting kids argument starts to fall apart. If adults can't speak plainly about harm, prevention becomes harder, not easier. Avoiding words doesn't make the underlying issues disappear, it just makes them harder to confront.
One internet for everyone doesn't work. A huge part of this problem is that we're all pretending there's one internet for everyone. Kids, adults, educators, trauma survivors, advertisers, all shoved into the same space under the same rules. Instead of building effective, age gating, or separate environments, platforms sanitize everything. And the result is adults end up talking like they're on a children's TV show about murder, abuse, and death.
Yeah, that's not safety, that's collapse. When everything has to be child friendly, nothing is actually handled like responsibly. And adults lose spaces where serious conversations can happen plainly. At some point, you have to ask who this is really for, because it's not serving kids well, and it's definitely not serving adults. Let's be honest, some of these euphemisms are already on borrowed time. Unalive is starting to get flagged. Grape is absolutely being tracked.
And that's the irony. Once everyone understands the code, it stops working, which means the cycle never ends. Creators invent a workaround, the algorithm learns it, and then everyone scrambles again. It's linguistic whack-a-mole. Welcome to the algorithm thesaurus. Updated constantly, never explained.
And it never even works. I learned half these words from my teenager. Like they knew before I did. So where does it end? If the algorithm keeps tightening the screws, will we all be speaking in riddles? Not us, but I mean in general. Or will lawsuits like this push platforms to rethink their approach?
So we've talked about the rules, the algorithms, the money, the workarounds. But I want to talk about what all of this actually costs us. Because this isn't about language getting weird. It's about how we understand harm, how we process trauma, and how we hold people accountable.
Language isn't just a tool for communication. It's how we make sense of what happened to us. It's how we assign responsibility. It's how we say, this mattered. And when a platform forces people to soften language, they're not just moderating content, they're reshaping meaning.
Let's take something simple. When you replace a precise word with a euphemism, you create distance. Like unalive doesn't land the same way as killed. Unsafe situation doesn't carry the weight of abuse. It blurs the edges, and blurred language makes blurred accountability.
Yep. This matters especially people who have lived through trauma, because one of the most important parts of processing trauma is naming it, saying what happened out loud, not hinting at it. No coding. When survivors hear everything softened and vague, it can feel extremely minimizing. Like the reality of what they lived through is too uncomfortable to even say aloud. That's not protection, that's eraser.
And it's not just emotional, it's practical. Education content gets worse when you can't use accurate language. Prevention depends on clarity. Awareness depends on naming patterns. If you can't say what something is, you can't explain how to avoid it. You can't connect the dots. You can't teach warning signs. And there's also this strange side effect where everything starts to feel fictional, like we're talking about concepts instead of real people. Real victims become abstract ideas. Real harm gets turned into, quote, situations. And over time, that desensitizes people. Not because they don't care, but because the language no longer carries weight. There's something deeply unsettling about adults having to speak this way, especially about the most serious topics imaginable. We're not protecting kids by forcing adults to talk in riddles. We're just removing adult spaces from the internet. Everything becomes child safe, which means nothing is handled responsible. And as you said, it's not like kids don't already know this code. They're online
More than we are.
Yeah. So what is the purpose?
I really don't know. When we stop naming things accurately, we lose clarity. We lose accountability. And we lose the ability to fully understand harm. This isn't about edgy language. It's about honest language. And when honesty becomes financially unsafe, the internet doesn't get safer. It gets quieter. So, in our closing thoughts, bottom line, the lawsuit might be over, but the language war is just beginning. And as long as advertisers call the shots, creators will keep inventing weird-ass words that sound like bad autocorrect.
When people can't name reality plainly, it's not because reality got softer. It's because the systems we're speaking inside of don't know how to handle it. And adults end up talking like they're afraid of the internet is listening. Because it is.
It is. And that's the reality. When algorithms and advertisers dictate language, serious conversations turn into code words and chaos. It's this really strange new internet, and we're all living in it. So, next time you hear someone speaking in euphemisms or dodging words that shouldn't even be controversial, ask yourself, why? Side-eye what conversations are quietly disappearing because it's too expensive to have them out loud.
And remember, if you hear someone talking about corn or PDFs, they're probably just trying to keep their channel alive. And if you enjoyed today's deep dive into how advertisers are causing creators to toss the dictionary out the window, hit the subscribe button, leave us a review, and share your favorite sus moments from this episode.
Before it gets taken down and removed for all the swearing.
Right? Or for saying all of the words that we're not to say anymore. Because one thing about this channel, again, we're not monetized anywhere. We're going to have serious conversations using the actual language because words matter.
Words matter. So, if you want to stay connected with us on socials, go to Seriously Sus Podcast. And if you've got a story or side-eye to share, slide into our DMs. Not with your dick pics.
No.
Or email us at seriouslysuspodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and above all, stay sus.
You've just turned into Seriously Sus with Nanette and Miranda, your ultimate source of sus with side-eye. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If the episode made you think twice or had you rolling your eyes at the absurdity of what adults have to do to have serious conversations, hit that like button, subscribe, and follow us at Seriously Sus Podcast for more deep dives into crime trends, drama, and cultural chaos. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay sus.
Outro music. Words are important.
Yes. We're going to say them.
All of them.
We'll never be rich, but we'll have real discussion.
That's right. Please enjoy our broke-ass discussions.
Until next time.
Catch you later, Sus Squad.